Hey, what's up guys? It's Jesus here with the Van Bros. And today I kind of want to make a video that is not a deck profile or a fight video, but more so a discussion video. Um Pretty much about King of Knights Alfred, the newest card coming into standard and about to be revealed this Thursday. So I wanted to sort of piggyback off of this post I made on Vanguardians. It was a troll post. I made it pretty much showing off, hey, I don't even need to know what King of Knights Alfred does to know that this is how I'm going to build my Keter deck. Pretty much just has the Keter pile on it. But it actually did, it got me thinking, and I've been thinking about this King of Knights Alfred since it was revealed in that stream. But I've been thinking, what route are they going to take Alfred? Alfred hasn't always been the same throughout his span in the game since set 1. To go over it, pretty much, here we have King of Knights Alfred. At the time, a very strong card because he gained 2,000 power for having for each rear guard. So he was a 20k attacker if you had a full field. To get that full field, you could counterblast 3, which pretty heavy, but at the time kind of balanced cost to call just a grade 2 or less Royal Paladin to rear circle. This is kind of the building blocks that the Alfred archetype would start to go towards. Another card I kind of want to mention, because, it's Royal Paladin, would be Gancelot. The reason I'm bringing Gancelot up is because not only will I be speaking about Alfred, but also potential support. Gancelot's cool because it kind of does something that is pretty similar to what some standard cards are doing. It has a discard effect to fetch you a Blaster Blade. Well, he doesn't discard himself, he shuffles himself back into the deck. But when I was thinking about potential support for Alfred, I thought to myself, wouldn't it be cool if they gave this unit like a retrain as well? And he was just a cycler for Alfred or for Royal Paladin decks to search out a Blaster or a Royal Paladin on discard for ride. And so that's kind of why I have him here, just because I want to bring that up, because I thought it'd be cool to also go over potential support. So here we have our Alfred and our potential support in Gancelot. Not only that, but Gancelot also has a pretty nice Vanguard skill, which is Counterblast 2 to gain 5k power and a crit. So he's a 14k attacker if you have Blaster Blade in the soul. At the time, it wasn't really that strong, but that crit was pretty mean because anytime there's crit pressure, it's just nice to have. But Alfred kind of devolved during the original series into Alfred Early, which with no cost, you would just ride him on Vanguard Circle and call a Blaster Blade from the soul. Aichi did it because he only had one Blaster Blade in his deck and he needed a proc MLB. But this is kind of the place I don't want Alfred to head towards. I like Alfred being more of a, he's a king of knights. He's not just Blaster Blade's best friend. So I always thought of him as being a unit that gained power by having your rear guards filled, but also being able to fill up those rear guard circles. Alfred Early was kind of like the beginning towards the end for Alfred, mainly because it started to go like, okay, yeah, these guys are pretty much 1-in-1. Like if Blaster Blade's there, Alfred follows. But then Blaster Blade had his own unique playstyle in the Blaster archetype, and Alfred kind of got left in the wayside. Even in the lore during G, Alfred was like, yeah, I don't want to be Grandmaster anymore. I'll just be the king of United Sanctuary. Fast forward, and now he's the king of nothing. So this, to me, is something I don't want Bushiroad to head towards, but I have a feeling they will. Throughout Season 2, Aichi didn't use Gold Paladins until Season 3. He continued to use Gold Paladins, but he had the Liberator Alfreds. He had Monarch Alfred and the regular Liberator Alfred. I don't have those physically. I wish I did. I thought I did, but I guess I don't. But there'll be like images right here. It was nice to see this card evolve in such a nice way. We fast forward to Legion. Alfred didn't have much in terms of Legion except for Exif. Exif was cool because Exif is literally just King of Knights Alfred, but as a Seeker, requiring Seekers, and his 20k, instead of it, him getting power for having the rear guards, he's kind of a mixture of both of these, where you Legion with a Blaster Blade or Blaster Blade Seeker to gain that 20k power, that extra 10k. The only thing is that he also gained more power by having Seeker, so you were rewarded for playing Blaster Blade Seeker. And if you had 5 Seekers on the field, he also gained a crit. You could also counterblast 2 Seekers to call a Seeker from the deck, so he also facilitates his own skill. But he was pretty mid in terms of like power, like, you know what I mean? Like, he is, compared to the other Legion decks, like a Thingsaber Abyss, I don't know if this guy really meets standard power thresholds. So then we head over to G the next time Alfred had any sort of significant support. We're going to talk about this Legion and we're also going to circle back to it later on in the video. But then Alfred had another Legion, this time with his dad. This is based off the manga that released back in the late 2010s. The units here are Ezel, King of Knights Vanguard Ezel, as well as just a reprint of King of Knights Alfred, except he just looks a little wonky. But I'll be honest, the art kind of grew on me. At first I hated it, but the art is actually kind of nice. This card doesn't really matter because we already went over it, but this card here is something that I kind of like, especially somewhere I want the modern day Alfred to go towards. For Soul Blast 2, you discard a card that has either of their names if you're in Legion. You search your deck for up to a grade 2, a grade 1, and a grade 0, and call them to separate rear circles. If this unit's in Legion, don't boost. That's another thing that's kind of annoying that King of Knights Alfred had, is that he can't be boosted. But I digress. This is cool because he fills up a board for a Soul Blast and a discard. Which, if you're kind of thinking towards, looking back at this Alfred and looking at this Ezel, like, it's not that bad because the cost kind of is a little undercosted to fill up a board. Then we look into support. We have the Guidepost Sage Elrond, which counterblast 1, he goes into the soul. If you have a Vanguard with Alfred in its name, you search for a grade 2 or less that is not the same name as him, and you call it to a rearguard circle, then shuffle. He's really cool because he not only can he be called off of Ezel, but he also is a grade 0 that can go into the soul and then calls another grade 1, so you can get a stronger board. You have one of the blasters, Swordsman of Light Blaster Rapier Laura. She doesn't really do much except for have resist, as well as give the same King of Knights that's on the column as her 1000 power. So she kind of gets over the whole like no boost. You have Swordsman of Light Blaster Axe Grawl. Grawl just gains 5k if you call another unit and you have an Alfred Vanguard. I don't know why they made this card at once per turn. I think he could have been fine, just, if you were able to just beef up a card, like, I don't know. I think he could have been a lot more used if they just didn't give him that once per turn clause. You also had Swordsman of Light Unos. Unos is pretty much just Grawl, but a grade 1, so he's a cool booster. So all these units do something when called off of, skill, and if you have a Blaster Vanguard, or an Alfred Vanguard, my bad. But the Swordsmen of Light weren't the only support that Alfred had. He also had access to the rotary sage and the undulatory sage. One saw more relevance than the other, even if that relevance is, you know, a bit lacking. But Belk for a counterblast and a soul blast, you could get up to 2 locked cards, unlock them, and then give those units 2,000 power. Tarna, if you placed him on rear circle and you had a grade 3 with Alfred in its name, you can search your deck for an Alfred card, write it, shuffle the deck, and that ridden unit gets 5k power. Not bad at all. But your only options at the time were King of Knights, Exif, and early, so you didn't have much to choose from there. That same set gave us a Stride for Alfred, which unlocked everything, and if you were in a Generation Break 3, he gained 3,000 power for each of your rear guards. Not only that, but this gave your rear guards power. So he gave each of your rear guards 2,000 power. You had a Ride Adjuster in King's Adjutant Knight Galahalt. And not only that, but on hit pressure as well, because he would countercharge. And then, of course, Swordsman of Light Almas. He was pretty much replaced by Lu the second Lu came out. But what this guy did is that if you have a Vanguard with Alfred, he gains 2k, so he's an 11k attacker. If he hit a Vanguard, you can counterblast one to search for a Blaster Blade unit. So it could be Spirit, could be Seeker, could be regular Blaster Blade. And then until the end of that turn, his auto ability, or his ability, became 0. So the cost of it became 0. So you could call a Blaster Blade, retire something. You could call a Seeker, retire something. Spirit, retire something. Really nothing much to do. Another card, this is a reprint of it, but came out in double rare. This Swordsman of Light did actually, it did something later on, and it was a little bit more relevant. This card, if you were to place it while you have an Alfred Vanguard, you put 2 cards from hand into Soul, and you would search your deck for 2 High Beasts, call them to separate rear circles, and shuffle the deck. So the comic booster came out before set 6 came out in Vanguard, GBT6, which is Transcension of Blade and Blossom. So at the time, if you're building an MLB deck or an Alfred deck, this is kind of what you were going to use in order to facilitate building that deck. So you had different routes to take it. You could do blasters, you could do Alfred, but you wouldn't really do both because at the time they weren't really meshing well. Later on, you got the Team Try 3 set, and we got Alfred Oath. Alfred Oath is a pretty okay reimagining of Alfred, but not really. His GB2 skill is literally just Alfred's regular skill, which is kind of lame. You could have made it gain 5k so that if you couldn't Stride, you could still utilize like a really strong Vanguard. But his auto skill is an on placement skill where you place him, counterblast, soul blast, and you discard a card from hand to call a Swordsman of Light or Blaster to and it's up to 2 from your deck to the field. You also needed to have a Blaster or a Swordsman of Light in the Soul in order to activate the skill. So I just don't understand why at the time where we had Striders and Strides, why this skill couldn't have been a Stride skill. You're calling 2 units from deck, that's pretty strong, but Alfred I think deserves to have a pretty strong skill. Not only that, but you're limited to the types of units that you can call. So I just don't understand why this unit had to be on place and why his GB2 had to be so lackluster. But Alfred did not end G with a dud. He ended off with a bang with his Stride. His Stride is also signs of the losing his own personality because for GB2, once per turn, counterblast, you Persona Flip, and you discard a card from your hand. If you have a heart card with Alfred or Blaster, you choose a rear guard with Blaster Blade in its name. Until end of turn, it gains 3,000 power, and he can perform Twin Drive. So now instead of being Swordsman of Light, instead of being like, you know, just calling random, like any unit from the deck, this card now just requires Blaster Blade to be the only way to get his skill going. And then, you know, from there, having the most relevancy in his lifetime, Alfred then goes to V series, going back to Alfred Early. Alfred Early, on place, call Counterblast 1, you call a Blaster Blade from your hand or soul, and he gains 10k till the end of turn. And if you call the unit, you draw a card. Pretty much Alfred Early, but with a Counterblast, you draw and he gains 10k. Or the Blaster Blade does. I don't like the card in terms of modern day Alfreds, but at the time it wasn't that bad, and also gave this guy right here something to start spamming. This card would see its counterpart, its Gold Paladin counterpart. This card would see it get banned, just because unlike Force, Excel 2 draws you a card. This doesn't do any of that. So you had Alfred Early, and then a set later you had King of Knights Alfred, which is from the first set. This trial deck, first set. Very similar. Counterblast 1, search your deck for Blaster Blade, call it, gains 5k. But if you have Blaster Blade on the field, King of Knights Alfred gains his 10k. And now instead of having a full field to gain that power up, he just needs to have his BFF there. Very boring card. I hate the artwork for it too. So, yeah, that's also a bias of mine. But this card's very boring and somewhere I don't want to see Alfred go into. And then the last Alfred card we ever got was Monarch Sanctuary Alfred. If you guys didn't know, Imperial Daughter is Alfred's daughter. And they both came out on the same set. They both came out in Team Q4, the first Vanguard V set. And Imperial Daughter just gained 15k in a crit. Just, you know, off the get-go, OTT already had something pretty gross. So few sets later, the third set of V is when Alfred finally managed to get his 15k plus crit skill. But for a Counterblast, a Soul Blast, and you had to return a Blaster Blade from your drop to the hand in order to get all that to happen. And he also gave Blaster Blade 10k and 5k shield. This card is lame because it's just like, it made Alfred just lose all of his sauce. Like, Alfred used to be so cool, and then V series happened and it just ruined him. Like, now everybody's expecting Alfred to do something with Blaster Blade. I could care less if he calls Blaster Blade. Blaster Blade has his own like set of support. He has his own thing going on. You don't need to make Alfred acquire Blaster Blade in order to function. I wouldn't want him to be locked into calling Royal Paladin units, because the only Royal Paladin units we have that are out are Blaster Blade. You have Knight of Friendship, Knight of Loyalty. There's more Royal Paladins to call, but they're also just regulated to the ride line. That's why in this set of support, I'd like to see Alfred get something cool. I would hope that he doesn't cost any energy. That's another big thing. If they make Alfred have an energy blast for his cost, then there go all sorts of hopes and dreams for people to cope with building him in premium. And I'm just looking forward to Thursday, and I hope that we just get Alfred Oath or the Legion meld into one, and that he has a nice ride line. We already know that Soul Saber and Gallatin are coming back, but they're pretty much just going to be rehashes of, like, they're going to look like Zero and Virgilla. So that's cool. But yeah, that's my video. Thanks you guys for watching. Please like, subscribe, share. And I really appreciate the new subscribers that have hopped into the channel. I woke up this morning, I saw 3 more subs, and I'm like, holy cow, I did not expect that. But thank you guys again so much for watching, and hopefully on Thursday we get something cool. That's all I'm hoping for.